The Joe Rogan Experience.
If I was coming like off the couch, so to speak, 6 months would be a little more appropriate.
Are you ever off the couch?
Only if I'm injured, and I've only been injured in any significant way since started ultraing running once for about 5 weeks.
What happened?
I had a stress fracture on my right sacroiliac.
What is that?
It's basically like on your tailbone.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened?
So what I think, it's hard to know for sure, but what was the way it was described to me when I was going in and getting that stuff checked out was what likely happened was I had such a history in kind of flat running that I was actually preparing for a race that had a lot more climbing and descending. So I started changing my training to more climbing and descending. And when I did that, one thing that sometimes happens when you're running a lot of flat, hard surfaces is your like ankles and your hips can get pretty tight from that real like kind of uniform like mechanic that you're doing. So like my range of motion was semi-limited. So when I was doing some of that hard downhill and uphill running, I just probably wasn't very efficient with my form, and it ended up kind of like we were talking before. Those impact forces ended up in the wrong spot, and then the stress fracture occurred.
That is crazy. You broke your ass. You literally broke your ass.
Yeah,
like people always talk about, oh, he was busting his ass. Like you actually did. So where is it, Jamie? Right there? Oh, Jesus Christ. It literally is your ass bone.
The really goofy thing about it too was
wow.
When I first had the pain surface for that, it was kind of in like the lower back glute area is where it surfaced. So I thought I had like a sciatic issue.
Makes sense.
I went into the doctor and they were like, okay, let's try some like active release therapy and let's see if we can get this thing to loosen up. And we just were working on it, and like it would like clear up where I wouldn't notice it if I was walking around, but then every time I'd go for a run or try to go for a run, I'd get that sharp pain right away. And so after about, I think it was maybe 4 weeks or so, we had been doing a ton of active release, a ton of mobility work, and then like it wasn't going away. So he's like, well, let's just get an MRI and see what's going on in there. And they did the MRI, got the results back, and he said, there's nothing there. So you start running again. So I started running again. I ran like, I think it was 2 or 3 days maybe, very short, like 2 miles and then 3 miles, then maybe 5 or something like that. And then I got a call back from the doctor, and he's like, oh, it turns out we took a second look at the MRI. There is a stress fracture there.
Oh, Jesus.
And I told him, like, well, I've just ran the first 3 pain-free days I have since this issue.
Oh, it's a mind fuck.
Yeah, well, and I think what he said maybe was going on there was it was a very fine stress fracture. It wasn't. I mean, sometimes when people have a fracture on their sacroiliac, it's like a big enough fracture where like it can be out for like a year. And
whoa.
Yeah. So it can be a really bad injury. But he said maybe the mobility and the strength work I was doing while I had that to try to rehab kind of strengthened the areas around it enough that when I just was running flat, really slow, really easy, that protected that area enough where I didn't feel the pain anymore.
Oh, okay.
So after that, I think I took another like 2 weeks off completely just to make sure before I started building back up, and then I started kind of building back up again.